This morning, colleagues. This morning we have Carin Smuts from CS Studio. Carin has worked with impoverished marginalized communities since 1982, beginning with migrant workers in Kraddock during apartheid. In 1989, she co-founded CS Studio Architects. For 40 years, the practice has delivered public buildings across South Africa and Namibia, focused on inclusive, improved urban spaces. Carin, over to you.
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Skura. Thank you, all my colleagues and friends. I see a lot of familiar faces. This is really early for people in Cape Town. We call it slaapstad, not for a bad reason. It's just that we always sleep later than anywhere else in South Africa. This is a great opportunity, and I'm very grateful to be doing this. I've called the slideshow Dreams and Spaces because I just believe all of us architects, we listen to people's dreams and we produce spaces. You can minimize that. Okay, now let's go. How can we go to the next one? In our practice, I am very interested in if there is a difference from us to other continents. So what I am looking at and quite intrigued by is what is an African practice. And this has probably been the question that's been on my mind since I was in second year at UCT. This is my business partner on my right, on the right, which is Urs Schmid. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2017, and then my husband on the other side, who also works with us on site. So in second year, I was really intrigued by why we were not being taught more about African architecture, African traditional spaces. So I started reading a lot of African literature, and this particular writer from Kenya, Wationga Ngugi, really influenced me. In his book called Detained, he writes about participation as a tool. So he uses participation to get people to engage, to share their dreams. And he actually was put in prison for empowering people through participation. And this text has been sort of the underlying text in our work. Culture is a product of people's history, but it also reflects that history and embodies a whole set of values by which a people view themselves and their place in time and space. So in 1983, when we were in fifth year, went with Julian Cook, and I must just say up front that Professor Julian Cook has probably been one of the biggest influences in my entire career, and you'll see through the practice how he's influenced me. But in 83, we were in fifth year, and we took 3 combis of second years to the Zimbabwe ruins to go and see Venda and Ndebele. We just went on this amazing travel up Africa. And it's then that I really realized there is definitely more in terms of the way space is conceived in Africa. So we slowly also realized that we actually don't know anything, and that if we use participation, we seem to learn from people and hear what people have to say. So we all know that in the past, government just plonked buildings down on people. So we really tried to see how we could work in a different way. We also realized that sustainability requires environmental, economic, and social aspects to be in harmony. And this African pot is actually such a good symbol, because if one of those legs are not there, it cannot stand. So we've worked all over the world, Africa, America, Europe, and it's not about poor communities. And that's what I just want to set straight. People often say, she's a community architect, but it's not true, because this kind of work works everywhere in the world. It's not about an impoverished community. In fact, they've taught me what I know about what's going on. So when we work in workshops and sort of look at problem solving. I'd rather like to call it that because I've actually, you can solve amazing problems in this way. So here you can see we do these little exercises, and then the one that's the most exciting is the helicopter exercise. So what you suggest to people is imagine you flying over the site in 10 years' time. Please, what do you dream you're going to be seeing? And it's phenomenal how people come up with the most incredible ideas and dreams and drawings. So when I was in second year, Julian Cook asked me, because he didn't want to do it, to please work with a group of people from Cradock. It was the fastest learning curve in my life because I realized I absolutely don't understand how our country works, what people do. It was the height of apartheid, and it was absolutely, it was a learning curve. It was an enormous learning curve. And I think that's why I always have learned to listen. And in our practice, we listen to people because we actually don't know. We really don't know. So here I was as a second year student or third year student in a workshop in Cradock. Most of these people were detained. In that time, they were, after this workshop, the cops locked up probably 50% of these people. They were from Cradock, they were from Credora and Credoya, the civic organizations in Cradock. So in 1984, I also went on a tour with UCT to Graafrenet, and there I met Matthew Goniwe, who said to me, please, won't you just use your architecture to liberate people? Don't just produce buildings. So that was a very interesting experience as a student at UCT. So then we started working in Cradock. The red were the first three buildings. Then the blue was a clinic. And then the yellow is where we did a cultural center. But you can see how the red and the yellow is in the buffer zone. And remember, townships were cut off from roads by at least 100-meter buffer zone. So that space, for some reason, we managed to get some sites in that space. This was in 1986, so I was about 26, and the first building was a creche. The community or my clients wanted to build a workshop, and the funders said, no, they're only going to fund a creche. So it's this, there was a lot of manipulation in that time, and it was really quite hard. Then we did a clinic where we did workshops. We would bring professional people from Cape Town, doctors, specialists. So we would really look at shifting the sort of intellectual landscape of our client to really have knowledge to make decisions as informed people. And we managed to build, funded by the Independent Development Trust, where the red side is the government. And this is the first time that the government and the community work together. And the sort of green side is the community. So the community were funded by Kellogg Foundation, and they ran preventative care and they ran post-care like physios for people who had strokes. And this was an amazing experience. Then we built about 10,000 RDP houses. I never got paid a cent, so I refused. I just decided not to get involved with housing after this project. But it was quite clever. I really think it's worth sharing. We had a principle. We fought to get a site that was 240 square meters instead of the 60 square meters. So we made Urs actually did this. He developed, the top structure was 17 square meters. Our budget was 17,000 Rand. And then the roads were wider and the property was bigger. But it meant that you could, at the end, have a bigger house, and you could a lot of people have got businesses, welding, mechanics and stuff around them. So what we did is we built this model, and Wilson Sotsi, who was one of the first people who contacted me from Cradock, he was the manager, and the contractor appointed him, and he worked with the community, and this is how they built the buildings. The photograph on the left is very important at the top, because people could only get a house if they brought their shack. So that was the only way you can actually clean up an informal settlement. And here you can see the starter house, and then you bring your shack, and then you immediately have 2 spaces. here also. And then some people who obviously were from the farms, they just got the first structure. And then one guy had a lot of imagination, and he took two structures and he built himself a funky house. Then we go to Komachas, which is up in the Namaqualand. This was also in 86, and here we were asked to build a little multi-purpose center. In the workshops, the people asked us to remember their Mikey's hut. They were quite clear about it. They wanted that to be reflected in their building. We built lots of models. And here you can see the contractors. The contractors were all that, besides the two in the front, the others were the alcoholics who didn't get a job at the Kleinseer mine. But they made every single block, and they built the most beautiful building in a year. On a Monday, nobody came to site because they all had a hangover. And then the roof was put on by the two teachers from the woodwork class. It was just amazing, amazing. They came, and within a week, that entire roof was put on by two guys. We also, the back wall, instead of buying acoustic paneling, we went to the sewing and weaving group, and we worked with them, and they did this immaculate carpet, huge carpet at the back of the building. So upstairs at the back is a library, and then downstairs is a multi-purpose hall with side spaces where they keep all the equipment so that they can run a creche from the project. And here you can see they've built a wall outside themselves, and they've actually painted the building. So it's quite nice to see how people carry on working or finishing off buildings, which is really dynamic. Here you can see when we arrived in Komachas, there was no water, there was no electricity. It was quite, and if there was water, it cut off the village from anywhere else because the river was flooding. Then we go to Cape Town to Langa. This was 1989, and there were about 38 kids who were killed in gangs. There were four main gangs in Langa, and they used to go to an open field, and they would kill each other with spokes, bicycle spokes and pangas, and they were like from the age of 10 to about 30, and a lot of glue sniffing in those days. It was phenomenal. And we worked with Helen Lieberman and myself, and Adele Searle were asked by the community to please try and make a breakthrough into these gangs. And they're just little kids, you know. It was very, very sad. So we started systematically working with community leaders, with other youth leaders, with churches. And every Thursday for 2 years, we met at 6 o'clock at the ANC offices in Langa, and we slowly started working with these youth and the kids. And it was phenomenal because they were bored. The reason why they were killing each other is that they had nothing to do. They were living in shacks, they were living in hostels with 24 people in a room, and they were just disillusioned. So we tried to make it a fun project. So after the first 3 months, so people would come to the meeting stoned or smoking dacha or drinking or sniffing glue. And then we just banned it. We banned, they weren't allowed to come in with any drugs or any alcohol or anything. And within 3 months, the killing stopped. Not a single person has been killed from this four original gangs ever again. So it was phenomenal. It's really, and a lot of them have become doctors. They've gone to university. One of the big things we did was career guidance, just helping them with career guidance and finding a way forward. So the building was an old hostel that they chose, and it was in a very prominent position, and it was a really exciting process. Adele Searle raised all the money. I mean, it was incredible because no government wanted to give us money, and she raised all the money. So there were children and youth projects and feeding, and we were training people. There was a bodybuilding. There was just an enormous amount of activities. So here you can see the gray steel is the old hall, and the red was how it was flipped up to make the hall bigger and let light in. But we always try and recycle and upcycle spaces. If there's a building on the site, we always try and use it. We won't just go and demolish something. Then we worked with the children to paint the floor. Here you can see some artists came also to help us. So the floor in the foyer was painted by the children from the area. Here's a model that shows you on the left-hand side the first phase and on the right-hand side the second phase. So the second phase at the back was a primary school with about 1,300 children in it. And it was incredibly successful and it was run really well. And yes, so this is what happened. Another gangster, an adult, came to my office, and there was a man from the city of Cape Town, and he told me categorically he will break the whole building down, and if I ever set my foot near the building, he will have me killed. So this was incredibly sad. It was just absolutely tragic. The police, nobody would help, and systematically he just broke the building down. Then we go to Gugasitebe, which is nearby. This was 1996, the Langa Development Forum, and that's where I must say that the RDP, with its policies, and Jay Naidu and Nelson Mandela, who had that RDP program, really, really changed things dramatically. It really did. There was a Langa Development Forum. The people worked together. They were organized. They could communicate. We could do street surveys. We could do workshops. And this building was actually planned also over a 2-year period in hundreds of public meetings, workshops, interviews, household interviews, to just hear what people wanted, what was their dream. And this was the soil turning ceremony. And eventually, this is the building, and thousands of people visited. In the interviews with the elderly all wanted a rondable. Every meeting, it was about a rondable, and we want this massive rondable. And the kids wanted BMWs and cell phones, the imagery that they were dreaming about. So at the end, we landed up making this cone. And this building is tiny. It's like 800 square meters. It's smaller than the average house in Fresno and in Camps Bay. But it's used by thousands of people. There are lots of activities going on. And then this is the name of the building is called Gugasitebe. And Gugasitebe is an idiom, a Xhosa idiom, that is a serving platter. So you can see the maize. So the idea is there's always food. Anybody is invited to come and share ideas. So Gugasitebe is that platter. Then we found 20 kids sitting on the street. There were 20 young people that we saw people sitting around, and we invited them to come. And with Lovell Friedman, we trained them to do ceramics. Now, this was in close to 1999. And most of these young people, if they're not dead, because some of them have been shot subsequently, they actually are doing mosaic work in big hotels, and they are doing incredible work. Then here is in the cone, there's music, but I want to show you the guy with a white T-shirt on was actually a kid at Ulwazi, at the youth center. He was one of the youth and one of the gangsters from the youth, and his life was transformed, and now him and Jojo, they work with the kids and with tourists. There's a ceramic workshop where they make ceramics, and this was pre-COVID, an average of 3,000 tourists visited this building. Here is the prize giving. When we finished the building, the entire building was built by people living in Langa, and we always try and do that. And this was a prize giving where we gave people certificates. Then open streets have activities there. It's really a vibrant environment. And then we worked in 2012 we took about 10 years to raise the money because the government didn't give us the money. Also, the first phase, I must just say, is if it wasn't for Paulo Jordan, that building wouldn't be there. We tried the provincial government, we tried the city of Cape Town, and then eventually the Langa Development Forum sent Nomtunzi Jacobs to the national government, and the national government gave the money to build that building, Gugasitebe. And at the time, Henk Lawrence was the chief architect at the city of Cape Town. He was just phenomenal. So everybody was, all of a sudden it clicked and everybody worked together. And it was really an amazing exercise. And here you can see we worked, we raised the money, and then the city said they can't appoint me. They have to go out to tender. And this has happened on numerous occasions. So what I decided is to see if we can't do a design build. And we worked with a magazine called AIT and with Aachen and Düsseldorf and Virginia Tech. And Imagine Structure was the structural engineer. Then names that are not here, but we had some of the most phenomenal advisors in Germany and in South Africa who just made this project a success. And here you can see how the students, they carried the truss. It was quite incredible. So we did some workshops in Germany, in Düsseldorf. The students from Aachen came and we worked together and did workshops until we got to a extension. The students in Düsseldorf also did experiments and research into materials. It was a really, really exciting process just to see all this energy. And then we were on site and we got the city to come on board and to be a partner in it. Not 1 cent really came from them, except at the end they paid for some toilets. And this is the sort of the gang that worked on site. Here we're busy making the insulation. So you'll see here the students are carrying and assembling the truss. So you can see the containers form the structure, and then they are reinforced by a steel structure, because the minute you cut out something from a container, it loses its inherent strength. And then there on the outside, we did the insulation, which was mud and straw. And then on top of that, we put the pellets, the recycled fruit crate pellets was the top layer. And here you can see this young man with a 50 on his t-shirt was an intern in my office from CPUT. And for 3 months, he was the site manager and he was phenomenal. And then he went to Mossel Bay to visit his father for Christmas and he got killed in a car accident. So Carlton Mouton was, yeah, he was just phenomenal on the site. And just watching a 20-year-old manage 30, 40 people was phenomenal. And you can see the informal settlement behind it, that informal, and there's the water pipe, which we also managed the city to install so that the whole area doesn't flood. So it's often a much bigger story than the story of just the building. And then we started using the inside as a workshop, and here the relationship between the first phase and the second phase. And this is Happy Feet. You'll hear more about them later. But Siviwe Mabinda is a young man I met when he was a child. He was 10 years old at Ulwazi. We're now doing a project for him, and he works with young kids. And we actually used him and his kids to raise the money to build this theater. Then something that is very close to me is the influence of Professor Julian Cook over my entire life. And here is Clarence Mahamba, who is the hostel dwellers person. And Julian wrote me in to work with the hostel dwellers and himself, doing mostly the public buildings, whilst he was doing the housing. And this was the lecture in the theater where Julian came and did the Roelof Uytenbogaert lecture. And there were about 200 odd architects and planners came into town, into Langa for this wonderful, wonderful lecture. But what all these people don't realize, by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they were burning tires at the entrance of Langa. And I was fighting to get the tires out of the way so that the people would still be able to come in and enjoy the lecture and the exhibition that Julian did. So this is the outside. There's often entrepreneurial workshops. It's very vibrant. Here you can see Red Bull doing a workshop inside with people coming from outside. And I think that's one of the main things that we try to do is we're trying to build relationships, and we're trying to make sure that there's better relationships between people. And if our architecture can do that and facilitate that and create better environments where people can really thrive, that's really important. Yeah, and then in 2020, there was a fire. The security guard sat upstairs and he fell asleep, and his blanket caught a light in the heater that was next to him, and there was nobody could find the mains, the mortar mains, all the fire extinguishers were empty. Yeah, the community tried to put the fire out, but there was no means with which to put the fire out. And for some bizarre reason, the city had a insurance. So there was a 4 million rand, 5 million rand insurance, and they could employ a massive contractor who came and worked with. I was there, I wasn't allowed to be paid, but I was allowed to facilitate and manage the process. Andy Horn, who I love working with, and my staff and his staff, we landed up making some panels, insulation panels for the outside, and then just working with Clint Abrams, who's lecturing at UCT, and working where his students did the new sound absorption panels in the roof and these funky light fittings. And then we were donated, Showtex donated these beautiful curtains to us. So the space is just amazing. And lots of young people come in and do workshops. It's vibrant. School groups come and visit it. There's always activity, and it's really encouraging to see the building being used. And this was the last thing we did, was that we worked with a group called Our Workshop. They were started by Heath Nash, but they're independent and they work from Guguzitebe, and they do recycling of things. And I think this Vuk'uzenzele handrail is just fantastic. Then we go to Delft, where we did a school in 2000, and it's the most amazing project. I've been back there last year, and it's in a better condition than when we finished it. It has had a major, major impact in stabilizing the whole community. And when we had workshops, the parents asked, because there's the gang warfare in this community is also just phenomenal. And there's shebeens on every corner. So the parents said, please design something that our children can be inside and protected and not be exposed to guns and problems. So this, you can see it's like a circular shape. And then these white roofs is sort of things that the principal and different principals have added. So it's just nice to see that the buildings can accommodate other people's input. This is the streetscape. It's an old picture, but I just think it's still one of my favorites. And then the passages, you can see the handrail is quite tall so that the kids can't push each other over and the spaces become play areas for the children. Then outside also, we hope to do some mosaic. The government promised us money to do mosaic on those green walls. The money never came, but it's fine. The school has now put a roof over this. Can play outside in winter and in the sun, which is cool. And then these just little details of mesh. There's stainless steel mesh in front of every window that is exposed to the street, so that if people try and break in or they shoot, there's literally been one pane broken from one shooting. Otherwise, the school has actually been protected by the community. Then we go to Zolani Multipurpose Center, which is opposite the bus stop and the taxi rank in the middle of Nyanga. And the red roofs is the original building that was built in 1953. And then we were asked to come on board, and it was actually quite phenomenal. It was the first person who asked us to come involved was a man in a wheelchair. You'll see him just now, Isaac Sajatu. And he was disabled, and he asked us to build a workshop, 36 square meter double garage workshop. It eventually turned into a massive multi-purpose center. So just that one little trigger triggered a bigger picture. So here in the workshops, eventually people sort of spoke about a street. They wanted the life that's in the street outside to be pulled into the building. So we made an inner street that the old and the new sort of work onto this inner street. Then obviously somebody's brother has got a painting company and got paint and got a tender from the city, and all the concrete was painted yellow. So here you can see the original, and then it's just quite nice that something is actually happening. So there is maintenance, there's stuff happening to the building. It's actually quite nice. So this is Isaac, and Isaac regrettably uh, got a new house, and then he went outside, and the path was so narrow that his wheelchair always slipped off, and he fell. And when a disabled person falls and breaks something, they land up in hospital, and then the complications are just horrendous, and he passed away. But he was a major leader. He helped me when um, we did the mosaic work. He used to pay the people. He kept the money. He sat on the money, and this rumor was he had a gun, and everybody knew that. So he could go into the township with money, pay everybody because he everybody respected him. This is the courtyard space in the back area. And one of the main reasons were that the elderly were getting their pensions outside in the rain, and it was dehumanizing. And we decided to work with the pension company and get this hall up, which was actually a basketball hall for the basketball for school kids, which was really a big thing at the time. But we also managed to get chairs so that the people could receive their pensions in a more secure way. So this worked really. At the moment, 10,000 elderly come and get their pensions at this building. It is insane. So unfortunately, the basketball had to stop because of the pension payouts, which take about 5 days, 4 days, 5 days. And this is the outside vibrant place. The city has put a wall, actually put a fence all around the building, which is a pity. That's the second phase. And here you can see the front with the lovely mosaic work. So what we did is the people we trained at Gugasitebe actually came and did the training here. They came and did the workshops and helped the people. And now I want to show you Willie Bester, who his house in Kuilsrivier. Willie and his wife Evelyn came to our office and asked us to design a house for them. And this is actually very, very interesting because the sketch on the left is the sketch they came into our office with. It was phenomenal. It's so nice when a client brings their ideas in a sketch and not a sort of Pinterest or Dezeen or one of those kind of things. But Willie insisted he wants his studio to be in the middle, and then he wants everything to radiate around him so that he could be, he could be the center, but he could be in touch with his family the whole time. His family is really, really important to him. Here are some of the elevations. They're all hand drawings. It was fun. The one thing we had to explain is that a car can't park in a circular space, so the garages became the straight space. Here you can see the context. The other buildings are quite pomo and very, very conventional. And then Billy, he's just continuously adding spaces and objects and things. It's really phenomenal. It's a beautiful place. There you can see his workshops. He's using the garages for workshops. It was a phenomenal process. It's an ongoing process. It really sometimes will just say, okay, I want to add a gallery here, or I want to do something there. And he goes and does that. So this is an add-on, and you can see it's amazing. And Clint, who was working in our office at the time, Clint Abrams and Willie has built up a fantastic relationship. They're good friends today still, and it's a real privilege to work with somebody like Willie. So here's that studio in the middle. You can see it's really in the middle, and everything else revolves around it. And then we go to Laingsburg, where there was a flood in 1981, and I think young people won't know this, but at the time, the government would help white people, but they would help nobody else. So it was a very devastating flood. And when we started working there and in the workshops, that was the first thing everybody discussed is the flood, the flood, the flood. And we realized we're going to have to do something different. And we got hold of Diane Ferris, who unfortunately passed away recently. And Diane is the lady who went to fetch Saartjie Baartman from the Louvre. And she has a brilliant way of working. She sits and listens to people's stories. She takes the stories and writes poems, and just, it's incredible. The man on her left had lost 8 family members. He watched 8 family members, and nobody had ever asked him what that felt like. So this became like a healing process, and everybody wanted the building to be a monument or a memory to the people who passed away and who died in the flood. And this was the last poem she sort of wrote for us, and everybody said the water came through like a red raging bull. And it became this, the poem became something that we used to underpin our design. And here's a lovely model we built, and you can see, always so that people can see what the thoughts are. This is a sketch Ur Schmid did, and it's lovely, it's amazing. Then Willie got involved, and Willie started also listening. Willie's also a friend of Diane, and Willie came along, and Willie listened, and this is what came out. People spoke about the windmill that was there in the Karoo. It's something they thought was important. They spoke about helicopters. They spoke about a water creek, which was a fossil found in the mountains. And then the one thing they said that was really important was that because very few of them were helped, they want to help. So they have, and you'll see that yellow little van there, but they have a center at this building where if there's an accident on the N1, they go and fetch the people who are not dead and bring them to the center and work with them with the ambulance service. It's amazing. It's really amazing. So on site, there were these 2 existing buildings. And we worked like at Ulwazi Center. We added steel, we made them bigger, and we built a little bit more, but the frame was the original frame. Here you can see the original frame and how we let light in and have whirly birds at the top to facilitate natural ventilation. Then they also spoke about a train carriage that they wanted, because originally Laingsburg was started as a station where the fruit and vegetables were brought to the farmers, because there were predominantly farmers in that area. So it took me a year to buy this train carriage. And then some kids who were on tick petrol bombed it. So they petrol bombed it, and we then had to restore it. And yeah, again, Willie got involved, and Willie trained 4 young people in how to make decorative handrails from scrap. Here you can see these amazing handrails. They are just beautiful. So he worked with the 4 young people, and they made these handrails. Eventually we couldn't find a windmill, so we found this rocket that is at the top. You can see the train has been restored, and the red from the red raging bull. You can see the analogy of the station, of the train tracks. And then we made this ramp so that people in wheelchairs could access the top level. And you can see the corrugated iron on the right bottom slide is the recycled from the old roof. And it's got this lovely patina to it. It's really, really nice. But you can see this floating concrete, and you'll see they've actually, the community has done something phenomenal. Here you can see those ambulances. So the ambulances go and fetch people. They play with the children. They give them food until there's new. And it's normally 2 or 3 taxis that roll or go into each other. And it's at December time when people go to the Eastern Cape. They are really, really busy. So there you can see the building, and they've planted and made a sports field, and it's really, really nice and active. And look what they've done. Because white is cheaper than red, they have painted the whole building white, but they have also built a gym. So under the concrete platform where you can see that white walls, they've built a gym, and the gym it's just really active. It's amazing. Then we go to Delft, where we did a clinic for the provincial government. It was a very interesting process. They didn't want me to engage with the community. They didn't want a participatory process. So I cheated and I made another process where I got the community to give me their CVs in order to see if they can be contracted in the longer term. But in the process, I got a lot of information about what they wanted. Then here I conned the director from Human Settlements to come and explain the project to them. This is the very man who told me, you are not going to get the community to participate. We do not want, it causes too much trouble. So here we are, we engaging with the community before we start building, showing them there's a beautiful 1 in 20 section on the wall there, and there's a model, so it really shows them what's going on. This man became my savior. You always need a very, very strong person if you want to engage with community. And he, Mr. Vilele, he used to manage the quality of the brickwork. So people could come, little entrepreneurs, and there were a lot of women. They built a square meter of brickwork. With him and the community, we approve it, and then the quality has to remain like that. So it was a very satisfying process. Then we worked with the youth. There were 16 young people, and it's the two guys. They were involved in Guga Setebe. They were two of the very first people we trained. They worked with young people and did the most incredible mosaics at this clinic. Here you can just see the foyer. We also managed to get a pre-waiting area because people arrive at clinics at 5 in the morning in Cape Town, and then they're sitting in the rain. So this is a pre-waiting space. So you're not in the clinic, you're outside, and at least there's a toilet you can use. And then you go inside, and we had the pharmacy and the records. We put these big roller shutter doors, and the clinic is really amazing. And this is the waiting area, and this is the waiting area being used for St. Oosterfees interviews. People came and they could sing on a little stage. But it's just amazing that the management of this clinic is allowing the waiting area to be used for other activities. And I think this is just really, really phenomenal. World Design Capital, the courtyard inside, just the streetscape outside, these beautiful mosaics at night, just incredible. And the outside, yeah, and there's housing right around. There's RDP housing right around this clinic. This is a project at Grootvadersbos where we were asked to build some cottages, and we decided to do a recycling project. So at the end we landed up with about 11 cottages. We've got ones we call the hikers units, and then we have the 3 red sort of brown ones are totally accessible. All our buildings, we focus on accessibility because we've worked so much with people in wheelchairs and people with disabilities. So Russell Volmer and his wife, they're both in wheelchairs. They're great friends of mine, and they really were phenomenal at helping to design these buildings. They just really, they call a spade, and at the end, the buildings have been designed so that 2 people, if a couple is in a wheelchair, they can both actually move around the building. And the other units are slightly bigger. So we also built the new extension is the Kuierkamer. So these were the old buildings. We kept 11 of them and we dismantled the others. So we created a Kuierkamer because there are troops of baboons there. And the one night my husband and I went to stay there, we couldn't sit outside because the baboons just come for you. So we decided to make an indoor Kuierkamer with a braai and just a space where you can chill, and then also a carport where kids could play. So just making some spaces that are giving you a bit more than just a bungalow. So here's the model. There you can see we opened the ceilings up because the trusses were just lovely. They were really nice. And just some little sketches that we did to, just maybe for ourselves to understand what we're talking about. And then these interiors, trying to understand what the interiors can do. Then we got guys from Suurbraak, which is the closest village, and 6 or 7 of them came and they just carefully dismantled. It was so amazing to watch this process, because recycling is really worth it, but you really need to be careful. You need people who really care. They dismantled and restacked the buildings and the planks and everything. And here you can see us starting to build the Kamer and the link element, and attaching it to the old building, scraping off the creosote. There was creosote on all the buildings, and then using something called no burn from Mandalay Paints. It's actually phenomenal. It gives you about an hour before the wood would start burning. Yeah, you can see using the inside as a workshop. The guys were amazing. And just how the building worked. Look at the trusses, and just opening the space up, and outside looking in the space. And then here's the finished product. So you can have a braai, you can sit outside, people can party. There's a bit of a barrier. And you can see this, the handrail, and then we put these canvas awnings down. And subsequently, they've actually had to put see-through burglar bars, because the baboons still came in and would just thrash the place. They're quite vicious, and it's quite a difficult story. So here you can see the units from outside, and a lot of people go there. There's hiking trails, there leopards, there buck. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. So here you can see what it looks like with the landscape. It's just a lovely place to go to. It's on the other side of Swellendam. So this is our office, which we built in 2006. The boardroom, just the downstairs, we put this granite slab in as a carpet, and the workspace upstairs. And then when my business partner passed away, with the help of the office, the whole office was involved, and we made an exhibition, because Urs played a major, major role in detailing nearly every single building in Cape Town. He worked for MLH, he worked for Rebel Fox, he worked for Louis Carroll. He just worked for every practice, and his work, he was the detailer, and he had a phenomenal role. People, even when we started our practice, people would get him to come and detail. I mean, he detailed the waterfront, the shopping center. Louis Carroll got him back into the office to do that. So we had this beautiful exhibition of Urs and his role in detailing Cape Town. And Clint made a beautiful section of the buildings that he was involved with before the office. And then we did these posters and you can see them all on our website. They're really, really nice. And this is the last building. And this is Siviwe, who's now 40, who I met when he was 10. He is working with kids. He takes school children and he does after school care. He teaches them English. It's a huge, huge problem. A lot of the kids cannot speak English if they come out of a township school. And he does gumboot dancing. And here we did a little project with him. He got a piece of land next to a school. And with containers, we've built an amazing little double container as a little dance studio, and then a single container as a toilet block. And here you can see another phase on top has got some offices and some training rooms. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful space. And it's with hardly any money. The budget was insanely small. And it's sponsored the first phase Lacoste, the second phase was the Electrical Authority in France. It's just so bizarre that there's no money for anything in South Africa, and yet a lot of this money comes from overseas, and we still have to grovel to just get a bit of support. The third phase is a kitchen that he's working on, which will be on the outside of that lattice screen. But you can just see the phenomenal view of Table Mountain. It is just a beautiful. It's just amazing that you can have this tiny little building, but it has just such a nice feel to it. They also have a garden. They've made their own. They grow salad and veggies. And yeah, there's a staircase to upstairs, and upstairs is where he wants to start a bit of a after school care with computers to try and train kids with some computer skills. And yeah, you can see it's just a lovely ensemble of containers. There was a professional guy who came to paint, which I didn't realize it, but it made a huge difference to have an artist really getting involved with this. And yeah, this is the last slide. It's happy feet, and I hope you're all happy. Thank you.
We indeed are. Thank you so much, Carin. I think that was essentially a history lesson, so to speak. Thank you so much for those reflections um, throughout your career and definitely having us come into your experiences in the township and how you've worked. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And well done on the Delft process. Being able to achieve that. That is really great.
Yeah, I think I don't know why people are scared of people. I have never understood it, why officials are scared of people. You know, I mean, I told you I haven't shown all our work, but we worked at the prison in Caledon, and they gave us two meetings with the people we were providing a village for. And after the second meeting, they just said, no, 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 you can't listen to warders and staff. I mean, you must listen to the manager. Now, the manager stays in Caledon. The manager is not going to stay next to the prison in the village. So at least the one thing they said in the meetings was, please don't give us an institution. Please give us a village, because we're working in this horrendous institution where there's nearly 3,000 prisoners, and we go home in the evening and we have our children. So we don't want to be in an institution.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a nice lesson, that one.
Yeah. No, congratulations. I think you do such pragmatic art and such meaningful architecture. And no doubt it would have shaped how people who interacted with your buildings, how they look at life, how they because spaces do shape us. If you get into a space that is conceived like you do, the natural or effortless flair in use of color, I think you've actually managed to touch lives through architecture and just creating that meaningful backdrop. I wanted to find out, Karen, your balancing of delivering projects versus time. For you to do this, obviously, it must kind of be natural to you to do this. But did you find it challenging to manage the actual feasibility financially of a project in terms of your fees and being able to push boundaries or being innovative at the same time? Did you find that challenging at all?
It's extremely challenging because in those first 1 or 2 years where you are participating with your clients, and where you are interacting with them and you're formulating what they want, nobody pays you. Nobody. No,
Mm,
and then you have a business plan which you then land up raising the money. So it's not somebody paying you. So it's an incredibly difficult uh, uh, process. Um, what in the past we would be incredibly fortunate to be appointed to do like big government work, which I haven't shown you. They courts and uh, police work and stuff like that. And then that work, the government work, would the fee for that would pay for this other work. And
mm,
and just something I want to say, because maybe I'm the one speaking, but the process of the production of these projects are only as powerful as they are because of the amount of people and the process that thousands of people have engaged and given their ideas. So it's not me with my ideas. And in the practice, I also just want to mention we focus on young people. So I take interns. I've had probably about 40 odd interns from CPUT in my office, and those young people are forced to engage and give their ideas. So I think the buildings are interesting because so many people are involved.
Mm,
So I'm just
great.
I'm a conductor.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Karen. Questions or comments, colleagues? It is indeed humanitarian work. For those who don't know, Karen has won a number of sustainable architecture awards from the UIA, the Vassily Prize, then another one as well in France. Congratulations on that, Karen.
Thank you.
President Monique Gillespie.
Thanks, Gora. And thank you, Carin. Well, I feel quite blown away and humbled by the work that you've done. The depth and the breadth of your work I mean, it's quite stunning. And to my mind, I think to me, I can sum up your approach to architecture in one word: love. You can just see the love for the people, the love for like pure architecture that's functional and just gives joy. I mean, it just shines through in your work. And as I said, I mean, you can be extremely proud of this career of yours, if you can call it a career. I think it's really more of a calling. And thank you. I mean, you know, you've shown us the way that being um, an architect for social change, you know, for social work, it is possible. As you say, it's not easy, but it is possible. So thank you very much for sharing with us today.
Thanks, Monique.
Thank you, Monique. Rose?
Hi, Carin. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
I
Loud
just
and
wanted
clear.
to say I think you were conducting a symphony, and I wrote "Walking in Your Footsteps" today in this lecture over the years has been such an amazing journey. The use of color, craft, etc. It's so humbling to see your generosity to community, non-payment of professional fees being part of that spatial encounter. We
That's
laugh,
very,
don't we? Only way to survive.
very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rose.
Thanks, Rose.
Professor Peters?
Just wanted to add what you didn't mention, Skura. Carin got the gold medal, and this lecture really demonstrates that it is very, very well deserved. Carin, I'm just amazed about the optimism and enthusiasm and the time you must have spent on these projects. It's really magnificent. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Thanks, Wally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. SAIA Gold Medal Award, of course. Yeah. Thank you, Wally. Any questions, any comments, colleagues? Can you see it?
I do. Skura, can I butt in?
Yes,
Thanks,
Ken, just after, can you see
all I
it?
can say is
Just
wow.
now, Ken. Can you see it, please?
Okay, sure. Hang on.
Carin, I'm truly inspired by your work, and I think your consistency is very, I don't even have a word for it really, but just seeing that consistency, even with how it is difficult to get funding from the government and how you persevered through that to actually go into your body of work and touch communities. That is truly inspiring. Thank you for sharing today.
Thank you. I want to just say that I think, and that's what when I have young people in my office, I bully them because Julian Cook used to bully me. He used to put me out there when I was just a little pipsqueak. He would say, no, 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 you can do it. You can do it. Just go try. And I had to negotiate to buy a piece of land. I was 22 years old. So I can promise you, the interns who come into this office, after a year, they are completely able to do this. I make them do gardening. I make them clean things. I really push the limit with them. And I think that's the problem with our education system. Young people are scared. People think they don't have capacity. And if we could just, when we empower a young person, just tell them they've got it. And I think that's where design built at university for me is just one of the most unbelievably important aspects. To do design built is something every student should be doing. Thanks.
Carin, I remember one time you did say that the first thing you do to the interns in the office, you ask them to measure the office and draw it, and you already know the dimensions, of course.
Yes, but I also asked them to draw a staircase. Now, I have had architects, qualified architects from the AA who can't draw a staircase. So it's a 1 in 20 section, a staircase, and your handwriting has to improve.
Ken, then Mike and Laura. Ken Lever, please.
Thanks, Gora. Thanks very much. And Carin, all I can say is wow. Tell me, the thing that fascinates me most about your presentations is the skills development and transfer. Have you had any feedback on skills actually going beyond the facilities that you're building, and think back many decades to the exercise that Julian Beinart did on the decorations in Soweto on the buildings? Has there been any clear transfer of skills to the individual units by the people themselves, self-build? And the other thing that fascinates me is the color. Is the color you, or is the color the people?
Okay, I think I'm going to use the ceramics, the mosaic as a very good example. So we at Gugasitebe, we trained 20 young people to do mosaic work. Those people till today, I mean, that was way back, and they all landed up training other people to do mosaic work, and they've done hospitals and they've done hotels. They get employed to do without me. I don't have to be involved anymore. In fact, a classic little story is the one guy who's working from Gugasitebe, Mrs. Fagan, Gwen Fagan. I took her there and she loved his work, and she gave him this extremely complex a wall thing for one of her projects. It was like 2 meters by 1 meter. And the day she went to look, and it was perfect, and she showed him how it must go on the wall, and he went and put it on the wall upside down. And I thought Mrs. Fagan was going to have a heart attack. She was so angry. But they keep on doing. They keep on working. They've all kept on working. It is phenomenal. And then the color, I don't know. I mean, I didn't paint these. This was the community sat with the artist and decided on the colors. So yeah, I don't think, and also you saw even the red raging bull. The red raging bull is now white, and so what? It's fine. I think it's for me it's, and Urs, my business partner, always said, and that's why you'll see all our models are built with gray, with this card. Just one color, one card. And he always said to me, if it doesn't look right in this one card color, then it's never going to look right. So we're not going to be building, realistic models. We're going to be doing the essence, the shape.
Thank you, Ken. Mike?
Hi, Carin. Thanks for a most amazing presentation. I think if you read the comments in the chat line, you'll enjoy that. But I'm quite delighted to see that we share something when you refer to bullying the students, and that in my case it's bullying. But perhaps you should think about another term that perhaps you should think about is not so much as being a mentor, but a tormentor. So all the best in your career.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mai. Laura?
Thank you. Good morning. So wonderful to see this spread of work. And I'm here today because I'm doing a project in Langa, sort of 2 streets down from Guga Satebe. And Carin, I was concerned because, Guga Satebe and some of the surrounding buildings are such icons in the community. It's like, how do you add to it without disrupting existing patterns, etc.? But I've been very encouraged today because I see one of your main principles is that actually accepting change and development, architectural spatial development in a community is part of how your works evolve, and you embrace that. And as a young architect, that's very, refreshing to see, because in some instances you get these structures that are built, and if kind of anything comes against them or disrupts, the original space, it feels like the architecture is almost insulted. But in this instance, it's about those layers of development. And so I'll be looking to guide our design team in that direction. Just the last piece is that we actually are definitely going to be punting for the mosaic artist in Guga Satebe to be involved in, it's a small development project of the Langa Museum forecourt, but we really want those mosaics to, come across the road and be part of this project. So that's why I'm here today. Thanks for all the information.
Thank you. No, I think it's great. Those guys are the mosaic. Sandy is the one at Guga Satebe. Yeah, I always try and get them work because they just really, they do a beautiful job. They really do. And then they in turn engage other people and young people, and it's quite a nice system. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you for the comment, Laura. Any other questions or comments? There's quite a lot of them in the chat, actually, Carin.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find out, Carin. I think your work speaks for itself. But if you were to articulate, what would you say from all your work you'd like architects to be aware of? Obviously, looking at all the range of projects that people work on, what would you say as South African architects we should be most aware of? What we can take out from your experience as a practitioner over the years?
I really strongly believe that in Africa we have we've got different spatial understanding and different spatial qualities. And I really would like that to be something that is shared with young architects to look at. I mean, I didn't go in on it, but for me, the visit to Zimbabwe ruins, and along the way, the villages in Venda, the villages in the Eastern Cape, there is a far more complex spatial solution, because it's the space in between the buildings that is for free, and it is the social interactive space. So I just think we're not, and I would like more emphasis to go onto what is African space making. So for me, there is just a special quality in, and I think that's why our buildings look the way they do, because they're all little villages. I mean, in a way, they're little villages, and that's why you can add a kraal or you can add another something to it without actually destroying it. So yeah, I would like, and I really would love if even in the curriculum at universities that that it's looked at. What is different? Why are we different? Why are we producing what we're producing?
Okay, great point. Rose, I don't know whether that's an old hand or you came back.
No,
No.
it's a new hand.
Okay,
I just think
Rose, please.
one of the things that Rodney always used to say, and I think Carin does it as well, is that you need to listen so hard that you can hear what isn't spoken to and about. I just think it's a very good moral of the story of doing community work and working with and in and for communities.
Thank you, Rose.
Thanks, Rose.
Rob Rousseau.
Morning, Carin. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. You've shown us a series of public buildings which must make an impact on the communal life in these areas. Have you noticed any growth of the ideas and the colors of this amongst the humble single dwellings that surround these places? In other words, has there been a filtering out of the impacts that you make in these communal centers into the community in their structures? Not so much in their lifestyle. I'm sure that's happened. And as you've demonstrated, the gang life has been impacted. But to what extent does the imagery that you have created here filter into the houses around? Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. I think it's an interesting question, and also that maybe I should show that in future. The school that I showed you, the West Bank school, that school has actually influenced that entire community. It started off as a RDP. When we built the school, it was a joint, it was an RDP house that was two houses with a pitched roof over it. If you drive into that community today, the whole road is double story with extensions. So somehow the school has had this rippling effect on that community and stabilized the community. And in the road, the main road where the school is in, there's hundreds of businesses have started, and people are I mean, it's the scale, double stories, even a triple story. People have added onto their buildings, onto their houses, and they're doing it all themselves. So I would imagine that the school has inspired them to carry on and to do things.
Thanks very much, Carin. That's very encouraging. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Carin, the one phase of Guga's Tebe with timber cladding, apart from the disturbance by the fire, how is the material holding up in weather?
It's actually quite incredible because the pellets were fruit crate, and you know fruit crates are treated in any case. So that wood it's lasted really well. It's a bit like balau. It just gets drier and grayer, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, it's not something that you can go and varnish or do something with. So yeah, it's not as brown. It's maybe moving a bit more to a gray, blackish color. It's also because of the rain and the weather. Some of the planks are warping, but it's actually held up with zero maintenance. It's actually held up really well.
Excellent. Any more questions, colleagues? Any more comments? All right. Okay, Carin. Yeah, everybody's happy. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking time this morning and sharing your experience. I think everybody has learned quite a lot from it. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. Have a good weekend.
Bye, Carin. Chat soon.
Many thanks. You're a star, Carin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Carin.